Britain's Prime Minister was on a charm offensive at a summit in Sweden. Secretary of State David Davis was being avuncular in interviews in Berlin. All the while, Jean-Claude Juncker was reminding everyone, that phrase again, the clock is ticking. Meanwhile, the Chancellor delivers his budget to Westminster this coming Wednesday. Will the contents of Philip Hammond's ministerial red box be enough to get things on track, keep things on track, perhaps save Theresa May's premiership? A lot to chew over there, Janet. You're laughing. Is that a nervous laugh?
These aren't negotiations anymore. This is a hostage crisis. And the conditions under which the prisoner will be released won't even be discussed until the money is counted on the table. You have to remember that for the EU, it's terribly important that this all looks as bloody as possible and as difficult as possible in order to discourage anybody else who might get this idea. Don't try this at home. They could break poor little Greece on the wheel because it was a tiny failing economy, a basket case, and the population didn't want to leave the EU, didn't want to leave the euro. That's not the case with Britain. Britain is the second largest contributor to the budget. It's understandable that they should be getting worried about the money, but the idea that they're creating now this smokescreen about, you may disagree with me about this, about the hard border on Ireland. Nobody wants a hard border with Ireland. Nobody in Britain, nobody in Northern Ireland, nobody in Southern Ireland wants a hard border with Ireland. If the two countries were left to negotiate this themselves with goodwill, this could be resolved quite easily. But the EU is stoking this up so that it doesn't look as if it's all about money. They have admitted that progress has been made on the business of the rights of EU citizens living in Britain and vice versa.
That seems to be the one area where there has been some.
Yes, absolutely. And in fact, it would have been a good idea if Britain had said right from the off, all EU citizens living in Britain will continue to have the same rights. That would have been not only the right thing to do, the unilateral gesture, but it would have, frankly, wrong-footed the EU response. We couldn't have been accused of using them as pawns and all of that. But we are where we are. And the progress on that seems to be going quite well. It's the money that is the issue. And it's also the fact that the EU is determined to make this look as difficult and with the cooperation, I'm sorry to say, of a whole cadre of people within Britain who don't want to see this happen. It is trying to create as much of a sense of doom and despair as is politically possible.
Well, it's
succeeding. Yes. Yeah. It is and it isn't. I have to tell you that, I mean, obviously the people who write to me and so communicate with me are self-selecting, but every time Juncker opens his mouth, 1 million Britons remember why they voted leave, and they all write to me, and they put it in much more indelicate terms than I would ever put in print. I think actually if we had a second referendum now, the vote would probably be 60-40.
Let's not debate a second referendum. We can debate money because we hear that in the coming days Theresa May is perhaps going to talk about, of course it's denied, isn't it? Yeah. You will know, Janet, it's denied by number 10, but talk about increasing what might be on the table. I mean, is this just about money for you, Jeff?
I love Janet, but I disagree with everything that she said. The money is it's a blip in terms of the size of the European budget, the European economies. Nobody really cares about the money. I think this is...
Nobody cares about the money?
No, really. I think Brits care about the money because the Conservative Party cares about the money.
We're the second largest contributor.
Yeah, but it's still not that big a deal because for Europe Europe is the most important thing, and if Britain wants to leave, all right, it's got it. Let me just continue. To me, this reminds me of my wife went to Catholic school, and in second grade, all the 8-year-olds were asked, "Can God make a square circle?" And she pondered this and pondered this and pondered this, and didn't get the right answer. And the sister whapped her with a ruler because she said, "Sister, there is no square circle. God can't make it." Yes, God can do anything. And I feel that's the way the Brexiteers are. They believe that everything can be happy, that we can have the cake and eat it. That's like with the Irish border. Yeah. You can either have Ireland inside the EU and the customs union, or you can have it not. You can't keep the goods coming into Britain otherwise, and the movement of peoples. The Irish premier has said it's not the Europeans who are manipulating them.
Yes, it is.
Oh, really?
Let's hear Suzanne on the Irish border, because this has suddenly become huge again.
This has emerged as a very serious issue in the last month or two. We've got three, and just to recap, there are three issues that have to be resolved before Europe says that we can move on to the new phase 2 of the Brexit negotiations, which is the trade relationship between Britain and Europe.
Really
one of those issues now, the Irish border has emerged as an important issue. Now, I take your point. Nobody wants a return to our border. Everyone's like, of course not. But what's now emerged is that basically Britain don't seem to have a plan about how you will avoid that. And now Ireland has basically upped the ante in the last few days and really want a written commitment before they go on to phase 2 that there will be no border. They are worried now that if it's not agreed now, it will get lost in everything else next year when the trade negotiations start. Now, Britain, obviously, I can see why they're right. Say, no, we'll discuss the border when we're doing the trade relationship next year. They don't want to put too much on the table now. Yeah. So there's a real standoff. Ireland is caught in the middle. You know, how far does it... Are we looking at a situation that an EU summit in 4 weeks' time, which is crucial? Are we looking at a situation where Ireland will essentially veto moving on to the next stage?
No, I agree.
So it's in this very difficult position. Ireland's trying to keep Britain happy, trying to keep Brussels happy, but there are hundreds of officials in Dublin and Brussels working on this for the last 6 months.
They are.
And so that's the other issue. On the second issue, just to pick up again what you said, this idea of Europe playing hardball, of course it's going to be tough. The day Britain voted to leave, I was in Brussels at the time, the head of the European Council, Donald Tusk, said, they have gone. They've left. Our job is to, look after the 27 other countries that are here.
Yeah.
So of course they're going to be tough.
Absolutely.
And of course they're going to try and maintain. Yes, they want a trade relationship to an extent with Britain, but unfortunately, I believe it's 27 countries versus one. Yes, a very important country with a big contribution to the budget and a big economy. But at the end of the day, I don't think it should be any surprise that the Europeans, the 27 countries, are going to work together.
Sure. Of course.
Yeah.
Well.